Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Over 700 leases distributed to former Caroni 1975 Limited workers. National Security Minister Captain Gary Griffith to pledge a crackdown on crime. And the financial future of the Caribbean depends on how well it diversifies the economies of the islands. Thank you for joining us. Over 700 leases were distributed to former Caroni 1975 Limited workers. The lands are part of the VSAP the workers received when the company came to a close 10 years ago. Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad Bissessar says her administration is working hard to get these lots distributed as soon as possible.
729 agricultural leases and 42 residential leases were distributed to 771 former Caroni 1975 Limited workers. Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessar presented the long-awaited leases to the former sugar employees and vowed to speed up the process in distributing more leases. She described the distribution of these plots as part of the development process.
We are here today because we work on a very simple fact that development begins in the homes of every family. There can be no development if you are not involved in the process, and our programs have sought to make you stakeholders and beneficiaries of economic development. And this is why we say we do not see development as just mega projects. If there is no connection to benefit you, your children, your communities, then there can be no development. And so I'm very proud that we have the honor today to deliver your deeds of lease. And Minister has just said to me, there are another 900 should be ready in another month. Since we took office, we have been working on these deeds, putting them in place and trying to get them out. I've instructed the Minister to put a team of people to work with him in the ministry so we can fast track the deeds. One of the shortages had to do with not enough lawyers to assist in the preparation of the deeds. And so the unit to be created with more lawyers so we can fast track and get the deeds going as fast as possible.
Acting Chief Executive Officer at Estate Management Business Development Company, EMBDC, Kamla says lands for Caroni workers are currently being developed for residential use.
To date, we have already delivered on all the agricultural plots under the mandate for distribution to date. We have also distributed 8 completed residential sites, and if you drive around, you can actually see people constructing their residential houses on these sites. You can look at Sunny Ladu, Exchange, Picton. All these villages are now being expanded, and we look forward to bringing more development, more residential sites in the short term. We're in fact looking to put out an additional 1,200 residential lots by the end of this year for distribution.
Most of the plots distributed go towards development of short-term food crops. CEO at the Caroni 1975 Limited, Persad Jagru, urged the former sugar workers to use their lots to grow crops and assist in the reduction of the food importation bill.
The only way we can penetrate or we could break that importation is if we are able to produce more food, produce it regularly, consistently, and at the standard and at the price that the consumer requires. To date, the Caroni Green Initiative has produced over 200,000 pounds of produce, and we are hitting the market in a big way. We have close to 500 acres under cultivation, and we expect by the end of 2014 to have a further 1,200 acres under cultivation.
However, many of these same former workers may ask questions on how to go about utilizing this land to the fullest potential in earning a new income. Namdevco acting CEO Ganesh Ganga Persad said his company was available to lend advice on what type of crops were needed on the local and international market.
We're about identifying markets. We're about identifying markets in the local, regional, and international sphere. Namdevco has started partnering with the school nutrition program. We have partnered with the security services and with the regional health authorities. We know what they want. We want to work with you now to provide that additional capacity to supply these agencies. there is the capacity internally within the local environment to add more product to the lunchbox and also to the menu within the institutions. But we need to talk. We need to talk in such a way that we can advise what to plant, when to plant, and how much. But we need two-way communication.
The agricultural leases distributed in this set are for 2-acre plots in 13 areas: Cedar Hill, Edinburgh, Exchange 1 and 2, Felicity 1 and 2, Jerningham Junction, La Fortune, La Gloria, Montserrat 2, Pitimoon, Reform and Waterloo. Kimberly Caravan, News 4.
In other news, a recent upsurge in criminal activity in certain areas has prompted National Security Minister Captain Gary Griffith to pledge a crackdown on crime. Speaking at a joint force operation in the Malabar area, the minister sent a strong message to the public that crime does not pay.
A crackdown on criminals and gang leaders has begun in the Malabar district. The aim is to suppress criminal activity and stop all gang-related incidents. National Security Minister Captain Gary Griffith says the lockdown is necessary to rid the community of criminals and their gangs.
This is a hotspot area. Based on the National Security Alert State, we have escalated the alert state in this area, and the law enforcement officials will remain in this area until this area is brought back to some degree of sanity. The operations we are seeing here, it is not cosmetic. It has been carefully structured, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Defence Force in a joint operation, they are continuing to hold this area to try to weed out the criminal elements who actually have the perception that they are in control of the blocks of the streets. This can no longer take place. Based on intelligence, what the law enforcement officials will continue to do is to continue to put a foothold in these areas, provide their deterrent, and based on intelligence, they will continue to weed out the criminal elements.
During the operation, guns were seized as well as other ammunition. Minister Griffith says taking such measures will send a strong message that crime does not pay.
There is this strong perception by some that the gangs feel that they have this right to get contracts, this right to maintain certain turf areas. That is no longer the case. They do not have an entitlement. It is not that there's an obligation by the state to provide contracts to criminal elements. If we do that indirectly, we will be aiding and abetting in criminal activity, and that we cannot do. So what we are doing is what is required. You must have the political will, and at no time would criminals continue to acquire state contracts and utilize these funds as profit to ply their trade.
The minister says these clampdowns will continue to take place throughout the country in areas where crime is viewed rampant based on statistics and murder reports.
Based on the intelligence, the law enforcement officials, they are continuing to find weapons, ammunition, and they are targeting certain areas. There are certain places where many spot checks will be done. So they are putting a blanket. It's a blanket operational plan in the area of Malabar, Umira, La Hoqueta, Carapo. And based on intelligence, they would be moving in these areas based on true operations, patrols, roadblocks. There's aerial support from the Air Guard, from the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, as well as all these joint patrols through the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
However, making an effective dent in crime requires support and collaboration with the public and citizens with any knowledge of criminal activities. The minister urged the public to come forward and work with the national security forces in ridding society of crime.
The law enforcement officials would continue to pursue them, and hopefully we need to get the intelligence and the support from the public to provide the police with the information for us to find these individuals and to get the evidence that is required to have them prosecuted.
Kimberly Caravan, News 4.
When we come back, Chaguanas seeks to attain city status. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development has begun its public information and education caravan. The caravan kicked off in Palo Seco with a modest turnout as residents explored the services on display by the various government agencies and ministries.
The Public Information and Education Caravan is a pilot project aimed at introducing government services to various communities throughout the nation. It attempts to bring these services closer to communities and let residents connect with the services. Speaking at the Caravan, Minister in the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development, Senator the Honorable Razia Ahmed explains it's important to reach into communities and get information on the problems affecting the nation's women and children.
We are about reaching the people so that we understand what your issues are at the ground level. And that is why we are embarking on this campaign to come and meet you in your communities so that you could tell us what the problem is. Problems as they affect women, children, and the young people in particular.
Some of the services present to interact with the community were the Ministries of Health, Labour and Legal Affairs, the Civilian Conservation Corps, and the Ombudsman Office. Senator Ahmed promises the services offered to the people by the government of Trinidad and Tobago will be offered to citizens as opposed to citizens being forced to search for the services.
No longer are the services that are supposed to be reaching the communities, no longer are these services going to remain hidden. We want to reach you where you are so that we can reach the widest cross-section of our population all over the country and bring our services so that we can raise the standard of living, provide jobs that are sustainable, ensure that your houses are suitable for living, and if you are underprivileged and if you have medical challenges, if you have any kind of challenges, we are here to meet and to treat with those challenges. And we want you to hurry up and bring your complaints and your challenges to us. We are here to serve you as a community.
She adds, however, citizens must make it their business to let the authorities know their needs. The minister emphasizes to the residents that without their input, development will be slow.
We need to know and we need to hear your voices so that we can bring an adequate water supply to all of the communities in this area. Housing. We need to improve the standard of housing. Health. We need to make sure that the women and the children in particular can access the services at the various health offices. Schools. We need to know that the standard of education delivery, access to levels of schooling outside of the secondary school, outside of the primary school, we need to know that you have access to those services because it's about developing our people so that we in this community in Palo Seco can begin to talk about developed nation status and begin to represent evidence that we are a developing people.
Senator Ahmed anticipates citizens will benefit greatly from the Caravan as long as they continue to communicate their needs to the relevant services available at the Caravan. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
The Borough of Chaguanas has celebrated yet another anniversary year as a borough and now turns its attention to attaining city status.
It has been a long and laborious 23 years since Chaguanas became a borough. Equally as noteworthy is the country's 37th anniversary as a republic state, which was celebrated by the Chaguanas Borough Corporation in collaboration with the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas East, the Honourable Stephen Cadiz. Both events were recognized with a military parade on Sunday through the streets of the central borough from Montrose Junction leading up to the corporation's building. The streets were lined with residents and curious onlookers as they positioned themselves for a good look at the festivities. It proved to be an exciting event for both the young and not so young, and an opportunity to showcase the borough in its splendor.
This is the largest military parade ever to come to Chaguanas Borough Corporation. And I must commend the organizers of this parade, Inspector Lewis and his team from the Chaguanas Borough Corporation, and all the various detachments for giving of your time this morning under bright sunshine to be here in Chaguanas as we celebrate our 23rd anniversary of Chaguanas becoming a borough corporation.
The mayor also announced that the celebrations signified his final official function as mayor of Chaguanas after 15 years. His worship also revealed the latest developments at the Borough Corporation's administration building.
On Wednesday this week, this building will be formally opened. So you have actually initiated what's going to happen on Wednesday afternoon when the Chaguanas Borough Administrative Building will be opened by the Honorable Prime Minister.
The Chaguanas East Member of Parliament congratulated the borough on its anniversary and alluded to the attainment of city status in the not-too-distant future.
When you look at Chaguanas, Chaguanas has roughly 100,000 burgesses, which means it is bigger than Port of Spain, it is bigger than San Fernando, and therefore it is obvious that the borough of Chaguanas, I would like to think, at least in my term of office as a Member of Parliament for Chaguanas East, which incorporates a great part of the borough, that we will see the city of Chaguanas being determined within the next couple of years, and I'm sure the mayor is going to have something to say on that. But really and truly, there's absolutely no reason why we should not be a city. We have everything that goes in determining what city status is, and especially in this particular case, the simple calculation of the population.
Representatives from each detachment of the Defence Force received a token of appreciation for their participation in the parade and their continued service to country. Chaguanas became a borough in 1990 and to date is the fastest growing town in Trinidad and Tobago. Initially attracting persons for bargain shopping and moderately priced housing, the growth of the town has seen property values increase dramatically alongside the growth of numerous residential settlements. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Sport is up right after the break. Stay with us. With less than 2 hours to go before kickoff, Kenwyn Jones, captain of the Trinidad and Tobago senior men's national football team, is upbeat about the friendly encounter with New Zealand.
Speaking to the TTFA media ahead of the match, Jones expresses his excitement to play his first home match under the guidance of new first-team coach Stephen Hart. The striker believes the national team has been improving and is eager to win the public support at home.
I think the squad is pretty excited to be back home. We hope that the public is going to come out and support the game. Of course, the game is going towards Akeem Adams' family, and we're also excited, to play in front of the home court. I believe after the Gold Cup and the recent outings in Saudi Arabia, we've been progressing pretty well, and we'd like to show that progression at home.
New Zealand is ranked at 67 and Trinidad and Tobago 85th on the FIFA World Rankings chart. And although 17 places separate the team's rankings, Jones expects the team to go into the match without any fear of their opponents.
For them, it's preparation into their playoff game coming up, sometime in November. And for us, again, it's another stepping stone to show our progression. It's going to be a tough match. The New Zealand team have a lot of experience in it, a lot of professional players in it, in the MLS and England and so on. And we're going to go out there and play our football. We're not worried about the talent that they have. We respect it, but we're going to go out and try and continue to progress.
Kickoff for the friendly between Trinidad and Tobago and New Zealand is scheduled for 7:15 this evening at the Hazley Crawford Stadium. Gregory McBurney, News 4 Sports.
When we come back, we take a look at the financial future of the Caribbean. Stay with us. The financial future of the Caribbean depends on how well it diversifies the economies of the islands. This was the focus of the second day of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Trinidad and Tobago's ICAT conference, where Trade and Investment Minister the Honorable Vasant Bharath outlined how Trinidad and Tobago is on the path towards changing its economic landscape.
Despite a slowdown in business across the globe, Trinidad and Tobago continues to fare well among trading partners through the diversification of its economy. During the Institute of Chartered Accountants TNT's ICAT conference, Avoiding the Fiscal Cliff, Trade and Industry Minister Vasant Bharath says business processing outsourcing as well as development of the ICT sector now plays a major role in this country's economy and revenues earned.
We've already attracted the attention of Royal Bank of Canada, which used to be RBTT, of course. They now have a back office function in Trinidad and Tobago. Scotiabank also has a back office function in Trinidad and Tobago, and we've just brought in the Pan American Life Insurance Group. This is a new sector that we've not had in Trinidad before. It's a sector that we're developing as far as deepening the financial services industry is concerned in Trinidad and Tobago. ICT is another area because we truly believe that if all of our people are to share in the prosperity and be part of the economic development of the country, then we've got, through ICT, to spread that across the country.
Developing this edge among its competitors means moving away from the dependence on the oil and gas sector and shifting its focus to other areas such as the creative sector, agriculture, technology, and even becoming a transshipment point within the Caribbean.
We are creating a dry docking facility for the repair and maintenance of these large vessels, many of which have to go to Asia when they require maintenance and repairs. In many cases, I'm told that the fuel required to take these large vessels to their port of destination for repairs and maintenance outweighs the actual cost of the repair and maintenance. And many of those vessels are from the Western Hemisphere. And so we can create that right here in Trinidad.
This year's conference saw parliamentary secretaries as well as senior advisors from the Ministry of Finance from Barbados, Jamaica, Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago converge. Senator Jepta Ince, parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Finance in Barbados, says the Caribbean is well poised for diversifying its economy if it works together in utilizing its resources effectively.
When you look at our development and China, that pipeline, instead of looking at our China for our most of our capital, we look towards Trinidad for that pipeline. That pipeline into Barbados is going to be part of the stimulus as far as diversifying our economy and having that economic growth that we are looking for. So that is why I'm saying that we have enough capacity in the Caribbean to drive our economic growth.
This year's conference was themed Avoiding the Fiscal Cliff and the economic growth and the role of financial professionals. Approximately 350 accountants, finance professionals, regulators, policy makers, manufacturers and energy specialists are said to have gathered for the 2013 meeting. Kimberam Calawan, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you so much for joining us.